Numbers 17 to 21. Let's use this video to talk about sacrifice in general. It was part of our reading today. As New Testament people, we tend to, especially if you're a Christian, you tend to take New Testament Christian ideas that happen way in the future and read the Old Testament in light of what is going to come, right? It's very easy to do that. And probably the most susceptible idea to read New Testament ideas back into it is sacrifice. And that is, of course, because of Jesus' death. So let's talk about sacrifice and what it meant in the Old Testament alone, and thinking left to right how to think of it as we move into the New Testament much later. Let's ask 5 basic questions about sacrifice and what we have learned to this point. First of all, was it a substitute? Did the person who put the animal on the sacrifice think of himself as substituting for the animal? A very common idea, but no, there is no evidence that they thought of that. First of all, the word exchange or substitute is a common, or 2 common Hebrew words, and they combined they occur 50 some times in the Old Testament, and never do they occur in the context of sacrifice. So just when you think it would be easy to say the person is substituting an animal for himself, that language is never used. Secondly, the person who does the sacrificing in all the storylines we've read in Leviticus and Numbers, none of them deserve to die, right? You touched a corpse, you went through childbirth, something like that. So in no sense is the person substituting their life for the animals. Third, the person will still die in the due course of life, so it doesn't take that away. And fourth, remember, it's called an offering, and that just obviously means you're giving something that's not you. You're giving something else to God, and yes, it was valuable, and you even put your hands on it sometimes, but that idea of substitution is not part of the understanding of sacrifice in the Old Testament. Secondly, does it pay a penalty? Is sacrifice considered a payment? That's a good question, again, based upon where we sometimes take the idea of sacrifice in the New Testament. And the answer simply is no. We saw that restitution was a separate part of the sacrificial process. If you hurt someone, if you stole or took money, whatever the issue is, again, these are all laid out. You had to repay the person and then come and do your sacrifice. So again, it's never considered a payment or paying off a penalty in that sense. It did reverse ritual impurity. So in one sense, it does something, but it doesn't undo something, right? It accomplishes something, but that accomplishment is never described in terms of a payment. And again, there is a very standard word for pay or to pay in Hebrew, and it's never used in the sacrificial process. Thirdly, how would you think of this idea of dying for sin? Does the animal die for sin? Well, that phrase is never used for the animal. However, just to be ready for this idea in the New Testament, you could see how someone walking away from a sacrifice could think in terms of the animal having died because of the sin, kata, that they brought to the situation. So again, if you've touched that carcass and now you're ritually impure and you want to go visit the tabernacle, the animal will die for your kata. And in that sense, yes, that is a biblical idea, one that will be used later, of course, in the New Testament, but understand again the context in which that phrase is found. Does the concept of sacrifice foreshadow something to come? Now, this is important again because of how we will use the idea of sacrifice in the New Testament. I think the quick answer would be no, in the sense that, again, read all of the sacrifice texts that we have gone through, and you never get the sense that anyone is thinking that they're doing this in order for some other kind of sacrifice or a more perfect sacrifice or a final sacrifice to come. That language is never described to the Jewish nation. So again, I would be careful to think in terms of a person doing this having in the back of their mind that there would be a final one that would someday cease all sacrifice. And that brings up the last quick question today. When did sacrificing cease or stop? The quick answer to that is well into the New Testament era. 2nd, even 3rd century AD, sacrifices continue. Even Paul in the book of Acts, and Christians thus even after Jesus dies, they continue to sacrifice or go to the temple. And so the idea of sacrifices stopping actually happens because cultures, ancient Near Eastern cultures, simply stopped that rather inhumane idea, and we don't do it today, right, of killing an animal in a ritualistic fashion. So these are some things to think about, again, in challenging ourselves to keep to the story of the Old Testament, reading the Bible left to right, becoming relevant to the text before it becomes relevant to us again, and thinking through the idea of sacrifice.